Welcome. Please give another round of applause for the DSA Jazz Combo featuring Jerron Perry on trumpet, Caleb Beaudre on drums, and William Hill III on piano, all seniors at the Detroit School of Arts. Good evening. I am Miranda Bryant, a proud 2011 Martin Luther King Junior Senior High School graduate in Michigan State alumni majoring in journalism. I went to Carlson Elementary School and Paul Robeson Academy for middle school and enjoyed my DPS experience. In high school, I decided that I would go into journalism because I wanted to make a difference in the community through storytelling. After Michigan State, it was difficult getting into my field. So I returned to Wayne State University, received a scholarship, and will graduate in December with a master's degree in media arts and studies. I am the recent host of Metro Arts Detroit, a news program that features visual, performing, and communication artists filmed at Wayne State University and aired on Detroit Public Television. I am currently an intern on WDIV's Live in the D, where I assist with TV production from concept to air. I am living my dream thanks to the education at Detroit Public Schools, taking my school seriously and staying true to my passion. Thanks to the Detroit Public Schools Foundation, I have been introduced to several prominent people in the television industry and have been encouraged to pursue my career goals, no matter what. And now I am hosting the 8th Annual Champions of Education. Who knows what's next? I am grateful for the opportunity to be here tonight. Some of my favorite teachers were Ms. Allen, Ms. Poku, and Ms. Carr. Educators care about the outcomes of their students. Here's another grateful DPS graduate.
Corville, Nolan, and Pershing. And if I could share a very telling story. When I went to Pershing, I was not performing that well. And I had a counselor, Mrs. Fitch. And Mrs. Fitch had her feel of me, and she called my mother and my grandmother in. And oh my goodness, that was like, oh, that was a big freaking deal. I was scared to death. And when she told my grandmother about my disobedience or not following the rules, my grandmother cried. And oh, I was devastated. So when my grandmother left, Mrs. Fitch looked me in the eye and she said, "You will never make your grandmother cry again because you will not fail." She said, "Brenda, from this day forward," she said, "you are going to give the best that you have." And she monitored me. I could walk in her office at any time if I needed to talk. She checked on me. And I went from a very low achieving to graduating with honors and getting a scholarship to the University of Detroit. And you know what was so powerful about that moment? I did not think I was smart. I really thought that academic achievement was just something I couldn't have. And with Mrs. Fitch actually monitoring me and said, "Did you do your homework? Come by." And every day I had to go to her office and check in and talk about my classes and what I did. And the other thing it showed me too, Mrs. Fitch was an older white woman. I'm this little Black inner city kid. She cared about me. An educator is a person who cares about the outcome of their children. It doesn't mean that a Black teacher can't teach a white student or a white teacher can't teach a Black student. It's the educator that's inside of our teachers and our administration that actually care.
Please welcome Pamela Moore, the President and CEO of the Detroit Public Schools Foundation.
Thank you, Miranda. So Miranda is my daughter, not my biological daughter, but she's my daughter. You met her, I think, in 2017 at a Champions of Education, and look at her now. So good evening, good evening, good evening. Shalom, assalamu alaikum. Peace and blessings to all of you. Can I have all of our DPSCD educators in the room please stand? I just want to salute you and let everyone in this room salute you. Thank you for what you do each and every day. I need to thank these folks over here to my right. So you're lucky that Miranda and I weren't up here singing and dancing because our children haven't been in school, so they're not rehearsed. They weren't ready to perform. I always have our students here performing, but DSA said, we're ready. We can do it. We can do it. So thank you again, DSA Jazz Combo. What a great turnout this is tonight. So it must not be football on, right? So on behalf of my board chair, Ms. Beth Correa, I'd like to thank our presenting sponsor, Ford Motor Company Fund, for all that you do, and the president and CEO, Mary Culler, for 6 years of sponsoring this event. So please take a moment and recognize all of our sponsors and their continued support for the DPS Foundation and DPSCD. We're deeply, deeply grateful. We have a lot of return sponsors here tonight. Thank you to our donors. Thank you to all of you for coming here tonight in a pandemic. It's good to see you. So let us talk about our mission, which is to create and enhance opportunities for DPSCD students, families, and educators. It's what we do every day, and you allow us to do that. So welcome to those of you that are here in the beautiful Detroit Yacht Club on Belle Isle, and welcome to those of you at home viewing virtually. Tonight we celebrate our resilient students, our dedicated teachers, and our committed partners who make possible the work that we do at the DPS Foundation. We're going to get a sense of how tough the last year has been, but you'll also leave inspired by the sheer will of people that will find solutions in times of crisis. And 2020 was a crisis. The pandemic devastated many Detroit families, longtime businesses, and disrupted the lives of our children and our educators. But we're still here, and we made it. So give yourselves a round of applause. So we're gonna hear tonight about Connected Futures. If you haven't already, I don't know where you've been if you haven't heard about Connected Futures. It's the $23 million initiative that provided 51,000 tablets to our babies, internet and technical support for our students and their families during the pandemic. You're gonna hear about how DTE took the baton and led us to the finish line. You're gonna see the faces of those families that were so appreciative and grateful to receive not only the technology, but the basic needs that the district provided and the resources that every household needed that we helped to procure. So I know it's cliche, but we were and still remain a village doing all that we can do to make sure that our children are okay. And how do we bring out the best in our children? It's through education. Any holes that are on our children can be broken by a way of an education. I heard a scholar say this recently, so these aren't my words, but we are essentially made up of our minds. We are how we think. How we behave is based on how we think. So if you control how children think, then you control the behavior of children. And if you control the thinking and behavior of children, then you control their lives and their futures. That is an enormous responsibility on our educators to shape the lives and the futures of our children. So you'll also hear about our Alumni Campaign that launches tonight. We need to find every Miranda Bryant that's out here. I graduated with 1,000 students some years ago from a DPS school. I'm Hilger, I'm Whitney Young, and I'm Cass. And if we could find all of those alums and help give back to the children that are currently coming through DPSCD, they wouldn't want for anything. And giving back includes tutoring, adopting a school, and yes, supporting financially the DPS Foundation so that the dollars can go where they're needed, when they're needed, and sometimes we don't know. Sometimes it happens suddenly. Right now, we need masks, so who can help us with masks? So we also focus on literacy, and I'm almost done. Early childhood education, STEAM, career pathways, and experiences beyond the classroom. And this includes scholarships, parent engagement, a resource center, and family basic needs. There are never enough resources. So why shouldn't our students have what we all had, those of us that came through DPS and DPS-CD? So I'll stop there because I could go on, but there's some fun to be had tonight. So again, I'd like to thank you very much. And let's take a peek at some of our own DPS Proud board members.
Hi, my name is Angelique Peterson Mayberry, and I'm extremely proud to say that I sit on the DPS Foundation board. I also sit on the Detroit Public Schools Community District School Board, and I work for Ford Motor Company as a global manufacturing business development analyst. I stand outside my alma mater, Martin Luther King Jr. Senior High School on the east side of Detroit. Extremely proud to say I am a graduate of the class of 1992, the MSAP program, and I am DPS proud.
Hi everyone, Alicia Merriweather, Deputy Superintendent for Partnerships and Innovation for Detroit Public Schools Community District. I'm also a DPS Foundation board member, but more important than those two roles, I'm a proud DPS graduate. I attended Head Start at Edmondson Elementary, Golightly Educational Center, and I graduated from Renaissance High School class of 1991. In addition to that, I am a proud DPS and DPS-CD teacher and administrator for 25 years. I am DPS and DPS-CD proud.
Hi, this is Gwendolyn Hatton Butler, and I'm a member of the Board of Directors of the Detroit Public School Foundation and President and Chief Investment Officer of Capri Investment Group. I'm a proud graduate of Pasteur Elementary, Hampton Junior High, and Mumford High School, class of 1973. And I am DPS proud.
Please join me in welcoming the chair of the Detroit Public School Foundation, Ms. Beth Correa.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome. I can't tell you how nice it is to see people's faces, face to face, no masks on. And no one can say, oh, you're muted. So it's really nice to be here in person. And I actually got stuck in rush hour traffic on my way here, too. So I can't remember the last time I said that. It's been such a pleasure to serve on the DPS Foundation board. I joined in 2013. And I was so impressed by the dedication and determination of the founding members, and I think there are a couple of them in the room here today, and their efforts to really make a difference for DPS-CD students. The foundation has grown over the last several years, especially after the addition of Pamela Moore as our president and CEO, and our donations have increased almost $3 million since she's taken the reins. So some really great progress, but we know there's more to do. And we've also last year added 13 very talented board members to the DPS Foundation board, so we're really looking forward to making a real difference for DPS-CD students. So moving forward as a board, our focus will be, and you heard Pam say it a couple of minutes ago, engaging alumni and supporting the work of the DPS Foundation. So if you're a graduate of DPS-CD, you're going to hear from us really soon. And also further aligning with DPS-CD and their strategic plan to help students to rise and be their best selves. And we've made really great inroads in partnering with DPS-CD, but there's more work that we can do there in supporting Dr. Vitti and his team. And also building the capacity of the foundation. The DPS Foundation team is very small but mighty, and so the more dollars that we can raise at events like this, we can build more capacity to do more and partner in different ways with DPS-CD. Just wanted to say a couple of thank yous before I leave the stage. The first is to the Detroit Public Schools Foundation team. As I mentioned, they're small but mighty. So here they are, and Pam. So please give them a round of applause. They work really, really hard, and I know Pamela has to force them to take vacation, and sometimes they even work through their vacations. We have several board members in the room tonight, so if you would please stand so that we can recognize our board members. Thank you for all that you do. We appreciate you. And I would echo Pamela's thanks to all of the event sponsors, in particular Ford Motor Company Fund. We really appreciate the generosity and the support, so thank you so much. I'd also like to thank the DPSCD leadership, in particular our board members, Dr. Vitti, Alicia Merriweather, and Madam Board Chair Peterson Mayberry. So thank you for all of your dedication and hard work. As board members, we receive regular updates from Dr. Vitti and his team on all of the work that has gone into building a better school district at DPSCD. And I don't think anyone will ever appreciate the blood, sweat, and tears, especially over the last year and a half now, in managing through COVID. So that team deserves all of our thanks and more. So we appreciate all of your efforts. Thank you. And finally, our friends at DTE who are here with us tonight, Jerry Norcia, Dave Meter, our own board member, Joanne Chavez, and Lynette Dowler from the DTE Foundation for being true champions of education. So thank you for all of the support. You made things possible that we wouldn't even have dreamed of, so we really appreciate that. I hope all of you have a terrific evening, and we will look forward to all of your continued support as we continue to do the work of the foundation. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, Chair Correa, for those inspiring remarks. Due to a personal matter, Dr. Vitti will not be in attendance tonight. Please help me welcome Alicia Merriweather, Deputy Superintendent of Detroit Public Schools Foundation Community School District.
All right, good evening. Yes, thank you for saying that I was not Dr. Vitti, so that when I got up here, it was not a total shock. I could have pre-dressed for Halloween and in a costume, but it's better you know it's just me, and I am representing the district tonight. First of all, I want to thank the foundation for the continued support of the district. I'm going to give some comments really focused on the last year, and you made some allusions to the challenges. And I know part of what we're celebrating tonight is how we came through those challenges with Connected Futures as one of the examples. But I think it does warrant us taking a moment. I know we're here tonight, we don't have masks on, we're in person. These are all great signs of kind of coming into a more normal existence. But the truth is, we're not at normal yet, and we have a long way to go, but thank God we are not where we were a year ago. So I would say when you think about the last year, and all of us have had our own trials in different ways, both personal and professional, for the school system, in March of 2020, that meant everything changed. We shifted to feeding over millions and millions of meals out of grab-and-go sites. We had tech hubs that were set up to service families. We'll talk more about Connected Futures in a minute, but honestly shifting to raise money for tablets, internet, and tech support to make sure that every student in the district had those became essential during the pandemic because we were 100% virtual. All of that happened in a moment. It was all a pivot. It was responding to the situation. And we're still, in some ways, responding to the situation. This fall, one of the ways we responded to the situation is opening a virtual school. This has never been done. We have a virtual school that opened this fall with 1,900 students enrolled. That school sits separate from our brick and mortar schools. So students who are enrolled in the virtual school are not enrolled in another school. Any senior that attends the virtual school will graduate from the DPSCD virtual school. They can transfer back to a brick and mortar school, but what that told us is there were 1,900 children whose families said, we're not ready to go back face to face for whatever reason. And for some people, they found learning online worked better for them. That is a totally plausible reason to choose virtual school. For other people, there's still a lot of concern around COVID, and they're saying, I want to stay virtual for just a little bit longer. So we know we have about 1,900 students in the virtual school, and then all of our other schools are open for face-to-face instruction. We returned all staff back to work. Students, the doors are open. Today was count day, very exciting across the district. And what we're looking at is over 49,000 students back in school. And that is something to applaud. And it was not an easy feat. It's not easy every day. I'm looking out at Michonne Jackson, who's our Assistant Superintendent of Operations, and she doesn't know I'm gonna say this, but that team, imagine running all of the operational pieces related to keeping schools safe in terms of cleaning, in terms of building repair, all of these things, delivering food to medically fragile students. That's what her team did. And so when you think about all of these things that were done during the pandemic, and then now we still are pivoting because we have to make sure the school is safe for students that are coming face to face. So the district has implemented a universal mask policy. I know that's a big debate out there and you're watching clips from other places, but I say to our board chair and our board, thank you for making the stand that masks are not an option in DPSCD schools. So we're universal masks, a daily symptom checker, daily temperature check. We electrostatically clean the buildings every night with fogging and special detail if there's a COVID case. We do the daily screener with the temperature. You can wrist scan or face scan. And then, of course, we have a very detailed COVID protocol in terms of if a case is reported, we investigate it, we work with the Detroit Health Department, we do isolation, we do quarantine. I know more about COVID now than I ever wanted to, and I am a former science teacher and taught the communicable disease unit, so that's saying quite a bit. We have an amazing team of nurses. We have a nurse at every school. We have a chief health officer who leads this work in the district, and the district also put forward funding to support additional mental health support at our schools for every single school across the district. Those are places that we have made an investment. So not just the physical COVID strategies, cleaning, screening, but also mental health. And this is something that I think is going to continue to be a point of conversation as we move forward. And it is not just the students, it is the adults. I would say, and I may be stepping on a limb here, but in this room, if we took a moment just to reflect on what we've been through personally and professionally, there are just a lot of weights on us in processing. And it's not just something that students need additional support. I do think more broadly, the conversation needs to be open about mental health support for both our educators, our administrators, and just general community. And I hope that what has happened through COVID is a more openness to talk about these issues and not just keep them in a closet. And so I am hopeful that as we push out into the schools with the mental health support, that our families, it does require parental consent, so I will say this, any of you who know young people who need mental health support, please give an additional push to the family, the parent or guardian, to sign off on that consent, because even though we have funding, we have support, we have therapists, we have clinicians, they cannot service students, even if they're identified as needing the service, without parental consent. And so this is one of those pieces that I think even the community can help in terms of sharing information, making sure that we remove the stigma from mental health and get the support to people that need it, both young and old. I would say, just as I close my comments, I think it's really important for the people in this room. Some of you have been supporters of DPS for a very long time. I was at this table and people were talking about the high schools they graduated from. And when you think about the legacy in this room, in this city, that's connected to Detroit Public Schools, there is such a strong compassion and passion. And even if you didn't go to a DPS school, I have found over time that people love to adopt DPS schools and own them as their own and have a passion for our kids. And that means a lot, because at the end of the day, we can't change the world just by ourselves. We need other people to come alongside. And when you invest in a child, like when you invest in a human being, it's never a waste. I don't know if that makes sense, but when you spend time with someone as a human, it's never a waste. But when you invest in a young person, and I say this as a former teacher, current administrator, it gives dividends for generations. And there is just nothing like it. To the educators in the room, when we talk about champions of education, the clips that were played earlier of people remembering their teacher, let me just ask this, because those were a couple clips. How many of you in this room can think of a teacher, whether they were a DPS teacher or not, does not matter. Can you think of a teacher who made an impact on your life? And I just would ask for hands. I'm curious, can you think of a teacher at some point? Now, this is just for my own curiosity. How many of you thought of a teacher from the K-5 time? Like we were in kindergarten to 5th grade. Look around the room. Kindergarten to 5th grade. I know most people in here are only about 20, 22 years old, but still, that's a ways back. How many of you think of a teacher from middle school? See, that's my sweet spot. I taught 7th grade for 12 years. How many of you think of high school teachers? And what I'm trying to get at is champions of education have been around forever. They impacted you, and now you're sitting in this room with the ability to invest back into a school system that is sowing seed into this next generation. And I just want to thank you for being a partner. I want to thank you for supporting the district. We have been through some very challenging times, and what is, I don't know how to say this, so I'm just going to say it. COVID, in some ways, was a less challenging time than some other things this district has been through. And I only say that because we had stable leadership, we had a superintendent who put students first, we had a board that put students first, and that makes a huge difference. And so what you need to know is where we are right now is on the way up. It is a trajectory that I have full confidence in, and you heard my little speech. I've been with the district since I was 4 years old. And I say this right now, this is the most encouraged I have been about this district and this city in my life. So the last thing I will say is this. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for spending your time. I want to thank all of the organizations that have invested and continue to invest with your time, your talents, and your funds. This district is worth investing in, and I hope you see the changes that have happened. I hope you see that in all of the metrics that matter, prior to the pandemic, we were decreasing chronic absenteeism. We were increasing achievement and proficiency. We were filling our vacancies. We had brought back the arts. Do you understand that there was a time period in the district that the arts and physical education were removed from the schools? And anyone who knows anything about children and about education, you know that arts, music, and physical activity are critical components of a well-rounded education. Those were taken away. Sports programs were cut. The marching bands were cut. All of these things that make a whole experience happen for kids were removed. When we returned to an elected, empowered school board and an appointed superintendent, the arts came back, the social workers came back, the counselors came back, sports came back, and stability came back. And at this point, we are coming out of COVID. We're still in it. I want to be clear, we've got a long way to go, but all of those things are back in place. We have counselors at every school. We have social workers at every school. We have mental health support. We have arts. All of these things are in place. And I just feel like with the other support that's in place, this district is on the path for success. And I want to thank you for being here tonight. I'll be back up in my normal role as Alicia Merriweather to talk about Connected Futures. But I do want to thank you so much for your support. And for some of you, you've been with us through the thin and the thick and the rough and the hard. And now I am so thankful you're able to be with us through some sunshine as our students rise. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. I am a graduate of Southwestern High School class of 1994, and I am DPS proud.
Raquel Castañeda Lopez, Detroit City Council Member, District 6, Bates Academy alum, class of 95, woohoo, and I am DPS proud.
Hi, I'm Gregory Kelser, 1975 graduate of Henry Ford High School, and I'd like to wish the DPS Foundation all the best as you move forward with your 7th annual Champion of Education's fundraiser. Good luck.
Please welcome back the DSA Jazz Combo.
My good friend Jerry Norcia of DTE Energy and I were talking about doing something big. Little did we know that the bigness would be the obtaining and acquisition of 51,000 laptop computers and connection to the internet for students in the city of Detroit. Who knows out of this who's going to be the corporate leader, the senator, the governor, the pastor, the preacher, the president? And so we thank God for all of you, for you've made a significant difference. And in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, we are not what we ought to be until our young people are what they should be in every area of living. Thank you for connecting our children to the future. So now we have opportunities to learn at home. The parents can learn information about how to assist their children, job information, health care, all the kind of things that we need. It says to our students that we are important, that we can learn, that we are not forgotten.
With the pandemic still upon us, it's going to become a long-term benefit to these students and the way they receive education in their home and remotely. In addition to that, it's become incredibly valuable to families to basically have access to internet resources that they didn't have before.
As we move forward, this could be an example of how the school district and the business community can work collaboratively, transparently, and with a sense of urgency to address at-scale problems.
So, Connected Futures. First, I want to ask who knew the tune that DSA Jazz Combo played. Shout it out. All right, very nice, very nice. That's true, Michael Jackson, The Girl Is Mine. So I neglected to recognize Sean Thompson, who is here from Ford Motor Company Fund, who does so much for us. We have a Ford Resource and Engagement Center over in Fisher Upper, a school on the east side that Justin Kimpson runs, giving out free resources to the families over on that side of town. So we just thank Ford for all that you do. So Connected Futures. We got the Reverend Wendell Anthony in the room. Can you just stand up for a moment? Just one quick moment. It is my belief that the reason Connected Futures happen is because Reverend Wendell Anthony never bites his tongue. So Mr. Norcia of DTE and Reverend Anthony were having a conversation, and Reverend Anthony said, "What are you going to do about these children who are going to be sitting at home with no laptop, playing video games and sleep when COVID hits?" And that is how Connected Futures happened. So Connected Futures, a monumental set of goals set by some of the most influential leaders in Detroit during a time of unprecedented events. The mental health effects and the learning loss due to COVID may impact our children in ways that we will never fully understand or measure. But in February 2020, when we started talking about this thing called the coronavirus, right? People started coming together. The meetings began in March. The planning committee was formed in April. Philanthropy was rounded up. And in a matter of months, we raised and had committed $23 million. What a privilege to be a part of that winning team. It was a nationally recognized best proactive practice. I got calls from other districts across the country that said, "How did you do it?" And how we did it is Southeast Michigan is one of the most generous, deep-pocketed regions in this country, and generous. So thank you all. But to date, 45,000 of our students are connected. They have access to online curriculum and resources, and to the world. These tablets are used by their family members. The digital divide is less divided in Detroit thanks to DTE, the DTE Foundation, the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, General Motors, the Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Foundation, Rocket Community Fund, the Skillman Foundation, all of which made up our governance committee. Those were our major donors. But we had hundreds of others, individuals, companies, nonprofits. I got phone calls from a gentleman, one stands out, who talked about how privileged his children were and that he never even gave it a thought that if schools closed, that his children wouldn't be educated, wouldn't continue to have an education. He gave us $150,000. He was an average citizen who had invested very well. So again, thank you to all of our Connected Futures partners. So Connected Futures took flight, and we are proud of this work. Let's take a look at another video.
In the beginning, not just me, but I'm speaking about all families, were overwhelmed. Now that we have tablets, both of them don't have to wait on each other to finish with the phone or with the computer.
Before having my Connected Future device, it was complicated going back and forth between classes with my sisters going to classes as well.
That's my computer. I just be doing work and listen to my teacher on there, making sure I'm doing good.
As a parent, happening to work with 3 children, I most definitely have to be in school too. I appreciate all the resources that are coming for us because we need them. Whether it's getting a tablet from Connected Futures, those are resources that we need to help the children succeed.
It's creating incredible value for the children of Detroit in terms of closing this digital divide.
Our community acted in unprecedented ways during an unprecedented time.
We are extra proud to support all of the schools near our plant on the east side.
Connected Futures program is really one of the most action-oriented and collaborative programs we've ever seen.
We face a rare opportunity to reimagine Detroit and build a stronger, more equitable future for our children.
I'm proud that through this investment, we've now put a stake in the ground. Digital access is no longer just a privilege, it's now a right.
This is the first computer in my house. Thank you for the opportunity because I did not have the money to get a laptop. So this is great for him.
This was an example of an at-scale defined solution for 50,000 students. Thank you for having a sense of urgency on the issue and not accepting a small-scale solution.
And not just on something, someone, someday. It's on everything, all the time, each day. You're going to have the capacity to learn. You're going to have the capacity to be connected. You're going to have the capacity to hit your goals. As a household, chokes me up.
You know, it's much easier to watch a video and kind of tell the story, but I do want to say a couple words. This whole project, Connected Futures, started with Reverend Anthony and Jerry Norcia, and it flowed down to hundreds, thousands of other people. And I cannot put into words the difference that that project made. You see the video, but I don't think you really understand what it means to have a kid who doesn't have a device, who doesn't have internet, who doesn't have support. And it still gets me emotional because this was not a new problem, if I'm honest. So let's just be clear that the pandemic peeled back the curtain that people like to keep closed when we talk about issues of equity. So it seems like a simple thing, and many people in this room, I'm sure your children, grandchildren have multiple devices. So many that you're like, what'd you do with that last one, you know? But we have people in our district who didn't have a single working device. You heard, and we have multiple stories from the home visits that were done where entire families were using a cell phone for 5 different kids to try to be in class. And it reminds me of when I first started teaching, and I had a set of siblings, and they would show up on different days. And I couldn't figure out why. But then I started noticing that they were wearing the same outfit. So the one student would wear the outfit on the one day, and then the next student would wear it on the next day, and so on and so forth. And I only say that to say that we've been dealing with inequity for a long time. And we still have a lot of issues in this city and other cities across this country, in the United States of America in 2021. And when I think about the digital divide, it's the same thing, meaning I'm gonna give my device to you so you can go to class and get a present, and then I'm gonna use the device for my class to be present, and switching around. And this project, it's so much bigger than a project, but this project solved that. And we had no idea that we would be remote for as long as we were. Nobody knew. You're exactly right. When we first started talking about the coronavirus, COVID-19, nobody knew that we would be in 2021 October still dealing with this. And the district certainly didn't know that we would have to pivot to virtual instruction for pretty much the entire year. So can you imagine, because we knew, the district already knew that approximately 80% of our students didn't have devices at home. We were working on implementing what's called a one-to-one initiative, where students would get a device through school that they take home and bring back every day. That has its own challenges if you think about transporting devices back and forth and travel, but that's where we were headed. But we weren't there yet. So when this happened, we knew that the majority of our students did not have a device. But not only did they not have a device, because here's the thing, it has to be an educationally adequate device. So you need to have a certain level of video, you need to have a certain level of sound, you have to have all of those things in place, memory. Then you have the internet issue. This week, I don't know if you know this, but this is Digital Inclusion Week. And the city of Detroit is pushing forward with Connect 313 and moving into conversations about how do we make neighborhoods more connected. This is a critical piece of the conversation, but understand that this is a current conversation for the city. We solved this issue for the district, not for the city. We solved this issue for the households that belong to our district, but we still have a whole city of various levels of people that are disconnected. And when you think about what disconnected means in the digital age, to not be connected with an educationally adequate device, internet, and let's not forget tech support. Because if the device goes down, and that's for all of us in this room, if you don't have a means to get that tech support, your device becomes a doorstop. I mean, it is no longer viable. And so part of the beauty of this plan was those 3 legs: the device, the internet, and the tech support, which had a hotline and our tech hubs where people could bring their device physically to get fixed. And I will say this to this group, and I've said it all across the country: if you try to launch a digital inclusion initiative without those 3 components, and I would say the 4th one is education. We offered parent academy sessions for families. We talked about how do you get into Teams, how do you log on, how do you use your headset, because you have 4 kids that are all in the same house and need to plug it in and listen through their headphones. But all of that is very important too. And if you try to launch a digital inclusion initiative without those components, it will fail. You will buy a bunch of devices that will be deployed, someone will cut a ribbon, someone will celebrate, but 2 months from now, you have the same problem because you didn't build in the internet, the tech support, and the training. That's just the bottom line. And this plan, this initiative, was well thought out. It was a combination of many people working together. And the other piece is that it's sustainable. So what the district did, we didn't have the $23 million at the time. We needed that additional support. But what we did is made a long-term plan that our devices that we purchased through title dollars, we got permission from the state, that when we retire those, okay, so when those become obsolete, we can run those through human IT, they retrofit them and can be distributed back out at no cost or low cost using the same model. So this was not just a one-time investment, this was a sustainable investment that the district will continue through our investment in supporting tech support and internet for families that need it, and then the device refurbishing and redistribution. So when I think about this, it is amazing it happened so quickly, but I have to believe it was divinely ordained, and I have to believe that the people that worked on it were so dedicated to making sure it was long-term successful that that's why we're standing here today celebrating and thanking DTE, Reverend Anthony. I have to say, you know, that team that came together in March of 2020 really lit the fire and made it go. And then there were a bunch of other people who helped move it along. And the district now carries that torch and will sustain it for years to come. And so this tonight is honoring DTE, and I know we're going to do an official introduction. So the last thing I want to say is this, because I think it's a critical thing to say. The team that came together on this project not only raised $23 million, but they did the whole project with compassion, urgency, not pity. And this is something that I just want to stop on for a moment, because the line between pity and compassion is very thin. And what separates those two things is respect. And this whole project was done in a way that was done with respect, that empowered families, that made families feel like they had a space in this world and that they were of value. And the same project could have been done a very different way, and I see it done all the time. And as you think about things related to the district through the foundation, I say this to you, to always think about the line between compassion and pity, and always fall on the side of compassion. Because compassion can be given among equals, and it's always with respect. Pity can only be given to someone you think is less than you. And this project really maintained the worth of people and students, and I just want to thank you for that, because it could have been done any kind of way, and you did it with respect and with compassion. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. So we are indebted to Jerry Norcia, DTE President and CEO, Nancy Moody, who is a retired DTE executive who worked on who led the project, Lynette Dowler, President and CEO from the DTE Foundation, our board member Joanne Chavez, Senior Vice President and Chief Legal Officer, Jay Williams, who's in the house, Manager of Public Affairs, who helped us project manage, and many others who are here tonight. We just thank you, thank you, thank you. We couldn't have done it without you. So Dave Meter is here. We thank you. We know that Jerry sent a video. If we can run the video, and then we'll have Dave Meter come up.
Hello, I'm Jerry Norcia, President and CEO of DTE Energy. My apologies for not being in person with everyone this evening. I wish I could be there to celebrate and see all of you. Please know that I'm incredibly proud to be part of such a dedicated group that cares about our community. We're honored to be the 2021 Champions of Education. At DTE, our aspiration is to be a force for good in the communities where our 10,000 plus employees live and serve. That means equipping and inspiring people to build thriving neighborhoods to raise their children, start and grow local businesses, and have access to necessary services. Connected Futures embodies this. So let me tell you the story of how all this started. We were in the spring of 2020, and I would say we were in the depth of the pandemic. And I was speaking to my great friend, Reverend Anthony, and how much we could do for the community in this great time of need. His inspiration to me came from the fact that he said, look at Jerry, 90% of the children in the city of Detroit would not have access to an electronic device for studies, like many suburban kids do. And that was a huge revelation for me. And it was probably one of the most moving initiatives I've ever worked on in my entire career, and felt so compelled to really act, and to act quickly and decisively on moving this initiative forward to get tablets in the hands of over 50,000 children in the city of Detroit. And so I started calling my corporate friends at General Motors. Mark Royce, Bill Emerson was my first call at Quicken, and they quickly got on board. And then I called my great friend Tanya Allen, who was the CEO of Skillman at the time, and she was on board quickly. So we started getting the genesis of partners and funders that could get this off the ground. And we got it off the ground at lightning speed. We gave the team, I think it was April when we gave them the assignment, and we told them that by the end of May, we wanted 50,000 tablets in people's hands. We knew that was an unreasonable request, but we made it happen just before the school season started. And I gotta tell you, none of us knew at that time how important this was gonna be. We thought it would be something that students would use for 6 to 8 weeks before they went back into classes. And as it turns out, it was something that was incredibly important to students in Detroit for the entire school season, and likely will be again for this school season. So thank you for all of you that worked on this. Thank you for all of you that supported this. It was a great and moving experience for DTE and myself personally, so thank you.
Thank you. Dave Meter, can you come up? Vice Chairman and Chief Administrative Officer, accepting for DTE and the DTE Foundation. Where's my old friend, Dave Meter? Hi, Dave Meter. Thank you so much. I don't know if you want to say anything for the foundation.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to mention, I didn't go to Detroit Public Schools. My dad taught at Murray Wright, for those of you that remember that building. But you've heard a lot of stories about this incredible initiative. We all get opportunities to work on things in life. Some are really small, but they're still important. Some are big, like we all work together on the career and technical schools in Randolph and Breithoff and Go Lightly. But this was huge, as you've heard, 50,000 tablets. And you heard Jerry's story, but I'll tell you my story. So, we get this phone call from Jerry saying, we've been talking to Reverend Anthony, and we've got an idea we want to run by you, Dave. Well, no one ever runs an idea by you. You got to know when that's coming. A decision's been made. But what was really important, I think it's a life lesson for all of us, because we talked about this tonight. When we started talking about it, we said, well, we could work on this and we'll get the tablets for the fall. But the more we thought about it, we said, every district's going to be doing this in the country. There's going to be a rush on equipment. We're not going to be able to do it. We have to order it now. And that made a lot of sense, except for we had no money. So the decision was made to order the tablets with no money. The only thing we had going for us was Reverend Anthony and a lot of prayers. And it all worked out. In the end, we had a lot of faith. We jumped into this. Nancy Moody's name was mentioned. She went into the fundraising and said, we have to raise $23 million. And the question came back, how much time do we have? I said, a couple weeks. I don't know, those of you that have raised money, $23 million, and we did it about a month. And the goal was the money had to be in the bank before the tablets got here. And it all worked out in the end, but for me, it showed the power of community. When we have the school district, the city, corporations, faith-based partners, foundations all coming together with a real tight timeline. So this isn't going to be a year, it's going to be a month. Look what we did. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. So Ryan Barnhill, a board member, could not be with us tonight. She has a sick child, but she was going to talk to you about our Alumni Campaign. So I'll quickly talk about it because we're almost at the end of our program. Can I have every Detroit Public Schools or Detroit Public Schools Community District attendee or graduate please stand up? Thank you. Yes, DPS, DPSCD. We are DPS proud. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, this is the largest public district in the state, right? And again, there are hundreds of thousands of alums walking the face of the earth, and I want their contact information. I want them to know about the DPS Foundation. I want them to know how they can help, how they can get on board. I want you all to make a video, give me your name, the school you went to, the year, and put it on our website. We're about to launch this campaign, and then Mr. Tyrone Winfrey here at the front table is in charge of an alumni weekend next year in May. There's some cards out front. So just listen out for that. We're about to really lift up. I mean, we've got some pretty famous and dynamic alum walking up the face of the earth, right? And they just need to plug in and get engaged. And so I'll leave it there, but I have a really dynamic person about to come up who's on our board. We want you to see something first, and then we're going to bring up Bishop Charles Ellis III.
I'm Ryan Barnhill, DPS Foundation board member, class of 2001 Renaissance High School, and I am DPS CD proud.
Hey friends, I'm Bishop Charles H. Ellis III, Senior Pastor of Greater Grace Temple of the City of David in Detroit, Michigan. But forever, I'll be a Mustang from sweet, sweet powder blue, Samuel C. Mumford High School, and I'm DPS proud.
And yes, I did have a powder blue suit on at graduation with a burgundy shirt and a powder blue tie. Sweet, sweet powder blue forever. Mumford High School. Samuel C. Mumford High School. Reverend Anthony. I was DPS. I arrived here with my father and my mother. There were 4 of us of the 7 that would be born of the Ellis, woman David Ellis, Bishop David Ellis. And I was 4 years old, so my school experience is not Chicago, it's all Detroit. And McDowell Elementary, Bobian Junior High, and Samuel C. Mumford. Reverend Anthony always wants to get Central in there some kind of way. I allow him to because I did spend 2 years at Roosevelt. When we came, we were living on Webb between Dexter and Linwood. And I remember those days, Reverend Anthony, at Roosevelt. 3 schools on the same property, Roosevelt, Durfee, and Central. And I remember as a kid, 6 years old, my second year at Roosevelt, looking over at Central and seeing a rough guy that I would know to be Wendell Anthony fighting. He was already in high school. I was just in the 2nd grade. And when I saw him beating up 2 guys bigger than him, I said, y'all got to get me out of here. So my family loaded up the truck and moved to Outer Drive in Wyoming. And thus began McDowell, Bobian, and Mumford. What a blessing it was to be able to walk to school. 3 blocks to McDowell, 1 block to Bobian, which had only been built maybe 3 years by the time we got there. It was still, you could still smell the newness of it. And to walk to Mumford, right up Wyoming, past Curtis. And in the wintertime, if you wanted to catch a bus, you could, but you could still walk there. Great memories at Mumford High School. I would say that even before Jerry Brockheimer, who was a graduate of Mumford, put the Mumford Phys Ed t-shirt on Eddie Murphy in Beverly Hills Cop. And he wore that t-shirt throughout the whole movie. Everybody after that wanted to be from Mumford High School. Even Reverend Anthony, I was dating a girl over at Mumford. No. You have no association to Mumford High School. Day late, dollar short. But I will say we had great times at Mumford High School. When I tell you, Motown put the world to song, Mumford High School pretty much put Detroit and ended up putting the world to gospel music with the likes of the Clark sisters, who even featured with their own movie on Lifetime this past year. The Winans, Fred Hammond, Dietrich Haddon. Mumford probably has more stellar and Grammy Award-winning artists than any other high school in Michigan, bar none. Not to mention Earl Clue, graduate of Mumford High School in 1971. Allie Willis, who wrote September, Boogie Wonderland, Neutron Bomb. And by the way, she was a Jewish girl who had a whole lot of funk and soul in her heart. We had a great memory of Miss Jacqueline Hullum Hogan. That's my memory of Mumford. Miss Hogan was about 4'9", but ruled Mumford and all of us that were church kids. Mumford had a great church population. We had the second floor, all of the lockers, that's where the church kids were. And they called it the Amen floor. For real, the Amen floor. All the church kids, second floor. Miss Jacqueline Hullum Hogan. She was a Church of God in Christ member, English teacher. She mastered the King's English. She would not let us pronounce words wrong. Our articulation had to be precise. You are not walking, you're walking. You're not coming, you're coming. You're not talking, you're not singing. You're singing. She would get on us until we would master our articulation, not knowing that many of us would be singers and preachers and individuals that would have that kind of articulation influence. She died earlier this year. They buried her from the property of Detroit World Outreach. I honor her on today because while she was 4'9", she carried a big stick. Because while all of us church kids were trying to act like we were not church kids, because it wasn't popular to be a church kid, that could get you beat up at Mumford. We used to go for bad, but Miss Hogan used to always call us and say, all right now you know your daddy's a preacher and a pastor, and if I call him, he'll come here and embarrass you in front of all these folk. Yes, Miss Hogan, and everything settled down. I honor her memory today because I had no idea that I would be the person that I am and carry the influence that I carry. I say this, and then I'll introduce our guests. Her daughter called me last year, and she said, Bishop Ellis, you don't know me, but my mother is Jacqueline Hullum Hogan. She says she had a stroke. She's not able to talk, but she watches you every single night on television. And she tells me that I used to teach him. That's Chucky Ellis at Mumford High School. He was terrible. But all I had to do was threaten to tell his father, and he would straighten right up. I was able to speak to her in her ear, although she was not able to articulate and to speak back to me. But what a blessing that somebody could look at me and see the difference that they made in our lives. And I would hope that before we all leave this earth, that we can make a difference in somebody's life, that somebody will stand over our casket or say when they found out that we've left here and say, if it wasn't for that person, I wouldn't be the totality of who I am today. So I am DPS proud, and I'm all in terms of giving back to all of those in the Detroit Public School District. Thank you. Now it is my esteemed pleasure to introduce our special guest that you all don't know who's coming up. But we thank God for this woman because she has been a princess of Detroit down through the years. And what amazes me about her is that not many people can be in the public for decades and yet stay above the fray of all kinds of scandals and things of that nature. She's maintained integrity. She has an A1 class personality, and she's maintained it all of her life. And she's still the darling of the news media. Receive my good friend, Carmen Harlan.
The public education system worked for me, I think, because it mirrored everything that my parents wanted for us. I can remember as a child, being excited about going to school. The first day of school, getting the supplies and all of that, and leaving my tennis shoes in the gymnasium with, my initials on it. I mean, those little things sort of are the foundation. We grew up at a very interesting time. When I say we, I'm talking about my generation. And, because I remember in the 60s, I remember certainly the civil rights movement. I remember the assassination of a president. I remember so many events that you couldn't help but discuss, or you could feel the repercussions of those events in the classroom. We were introduced to great literature through our library class. We had, there was a full-time librarian in the school. I can't tell you how science was unearthed to us in the science class, because we would go to a science class and there was art and music. So we had culture, we had the sciences, and the world was sort of opened up to us in public education in Detroit. When I was at Mumford, and we had student teachers coming in and out of the classroom, and this was a history class, and I think we were just talking about current events in that particular class. And there was a student teacher, Willie Yee, who had been observing, for a few weeks, and he decided to pull me aside one day, and he suggested, based on what he heard, whatever I was contributing at the time, he suggested that, if I had my eyes set on a career, I might consider, broadcast television or mass communications was what he suggested that I study in undergrad. And I never forgot that. And he helped a girl from Detroit who was going to go on to college after her years at Mumford, and she did consider mass communications. I'm Carmen Harlan, a graduate of Mumford High School, and I'm DPS proud.
So Miss Harlan, we wanted her to come here in person, but she was not really comfortable coming out and being in a room full of people. So she was so gracious. She let us come to her home and talk with her and interview her, and she's wonderful. So as you've seen tonight, many of us are who we are because of what went on in the halls of a DPS or DPS-CD school. It's true for me. All of my teachers told me that I was going to be great right after they spanked me. I know they don't do that anymore, but all of my teachers told me I was going to be great. But I'm calling on all of the attendees, all of the graduates of DPS-CD schools to get plugged into the DPS Foundation. We need resources for students. We need the tools that they need to go to college and have a wonderful, thriving career. Help us do this important work. Start by going to our website. I want you to send in those videos. And I promise we won't bug you often because we are going to ask you for your email address. So for those on YouTube tonight, I hope you enjoyed us. Our children need us to give back like someone gave back to us when we came through the district. It was the biggest district in the state when I came through, and it still is. We're getting a lot of resources from the Biden administration, but those resources don't cover programs after school, and it's only a 2-year infusion of money, as Miss Alicia Merriweather said. So we still need your support. We need mentors. We need tutors. So let's provide them the rich K-12 experience that I had, that we all had. So before I let you go tonight, I want to tell you about an October 13th event. For those that just are still not sure of who the DPS Foundation is and what we do, tune in. It's our Lunch and Learn, October 13th. You can go to our website. We've got some information out front just to hear about who we are and what we do in our relationship to the district and neighborhood resources. Again, the flyer is out front, or more information is out front. Well, that's it. Thank you for sharing your evening. We did go a little long tonight, but as you can see, Connected Futures really meant a lot to us. It was a monumental partnership. It really showed how this community cares about these 51,000 children at DPSCD. So I need to thank our sponsors again. Thank you, Ford Motor Company Fund, for sponsoring, being our presenting sponsor. Thank you for WPTV Public Television. This is the second year they've done this for us. Thank you, Donald Walker, for helping us with that. Thank you to our teachers, our speakers, our partners, performers, DSA, Jazz Combo. Thank you to the Detroit Yacht Club, DPSCD leadership. I know how hard you work because we work alongside you. Thank you for everything you do, teachers, principals, and administration. We hope you enjoyed the program. I'm grateful to you all. Remember to use Lyft, drink James Oliver coffee, and shop at Kroger. We have a partnership with all of them. On behalf of the children of DPSCD, my board, and the extremely hardworking DPS Foundation team, and my co-mistress, look for her, she's gonna do great things, Miss Miranda Bryant. Thank you. Take good care of yourselves. Be safe going home. Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Mm-hmm.